I know what you're wondering. Does the VR Batman game make me feel like Batman?
It's the freaking bat!
Well, the answer is no. Never once in Batman Arkham Shadow's long playtime did I feel like I had $1 billion. And without that, the simulation will never be complete. That said, it did do a remarkably good job of making me feel like I was playing an actual Arkham game, by including all the signature elements of Rocksteady's legendary series. Literally punchy combat, intricate Metroidvania-style level design that unlocks more and more as you gain new abilities, and some genuinely tricky optional puzzles. It is a little clumsy and buggy at times, but enough of it translates well to VR that it's more like a real game than a gimmick, and the mystery story pays off well without retreading too many of the Arkham series plots. And sure, while grabbing at your sides and raising your arms to glide around on your cape may look absolutely absurd to anyone who happens to be in the room with you as you play, I'd be lying if I told you it wasn't pretty fun.
Sequence initiated. Batsuit ready. Please equip cowling.
This sequel to a prequel is wedged into the space between Arkham Origins and Arkham Asylum, a time period where a younger Bruce Wayne is bluntly but capably voiced by Roger Craig Smith rather than the late, great Kevin Conroy.
Add this to your schematics of the sewers. The rats marked the locations of their hostages.
After a brief intro sequence in Gotham sewers rubbing elbows with Jim Gordon and a young, one-faced Harvey Dent, we go undercover into Blackgate Prison, where Batman first encounters the likes of Doctors Harleen Quinzel and Jonathan Crane, Arnold Wesker aka the Ventriloquist, Barbara Gordon,
thanks for the tip, Barbara. Couldn't have done it without you.
And a few more. Naturally, the developers at Camouflage can't help but retread things we've seen done to death. It wouldn't really be an Arkham game without a Scarecrow hallucination sequence, for instance, and of course we're treated to yet another reenactment of Crime Alley.
Oh god, wake up, no.
However, the new mystery villain known as the Rat King and his populous cult, paired with the over-the-top sadist prison warden Bolton, give Shadow enough of its own material to work with that it doesn't feel too derivative.
There's nothing wrong with you that can't be fixed with my own two hands.
Another novel approach is to have Bruce Wayne visit his makeshift Batcave under Blackgate to switch between two costumes. He wears his full Batman regalia by night, but when the Batsuit's back on the rack, he slaps on a Mission Impossible-style mask of a 2-bit thug named Matches Malone, who's been thrown in with Gotham's worst for petty arson?
Congratulations, Malone. You're going to Blackgate Prison.
There is some gadgetless prison yard brawling to be done as Malone, but these sections are much more about ingratiating yourself to incarcerated mob boss Carmine Falcone and the other prisoners.
I hear Falcone's looking for some muscle.
And getting the lay of the maze-like prison yard as the days tick down to the Rat King's grand plan. I won't say I wasn't eager to put the cape and cowl back on by the end of each session as matches, but the change of pace and perspective isn't unwelcome, considering there's only so much variety one can find within the walls and absurdly high-tech doors of a prison, and the dark caverns below.
Help you find something, friend?
On that note, despite all of this running on a machine that's strapped to your face, Arkham Shadow is easily on par with Arkham Asylum as it looked on the Xbox 360 in terms of its character models and textures, and obviously it's running at a much higher resolution and frame rate. Sure, it's not quite up to that level of art direction or the scale of its open areas, but that's an extremely high bar. It's certainly the best looking Quest exclusive game I've ever played, likely because it's made for the Quest 3 and 3S, and doesn't have to compromise for compatibility with older models. Glimpsing my bat-eared shadow as I walk down a hall or glide over the prison yard with a light behind me is always a treat. Those heavy doors do often take a while to open though, since they're masking a lot of loading into the new area you're traveling to. And be ready to recharge your Quest 3 4 or 5 times to get through Arkham Shadow's story, which can run for more than 10 hours if you're not stopping to smell the many rat puzzles along the way. And it's probably good to come up for air after a few hours in VR anyway. First-person brawling works surprisingly well, and after things ramped up a bit to introduce enemies with armor, stun batons, shields, knives, and guns, most of whom required different takedown moves, I was working up a sweat throwing physical punches that do more damage if you swing like you mean it. Here it's less about timing punches and more about pausing for a split second after that first smack to see which sequence randomly opens up and then executing it. It occasionally interprets a swing from one side as a straight-on punch or vice versa, but otherwise it's pretty satisfying. That's enough to keep fights from becoming mindless flailing, but the fact that you're usually being circled by several other thugs means you have to work fast to put an enemy down before you see an incoming attack icon on your peripheral vision and have to detour to block it with a Michael Keaton-esque no-look punch to the side, which pulls you onto a different target. The pressure is very much on. Certain enemies need to be staggered before you can beat on them, so you'll have to use abilities like confusing them with a cape swing or flipping over them with a forward flick of the right stick and punching them from behind. It's easy enough to do most of this in the most straightforward way possible, but the opportunity to run up the score with unbroken combos and mixing in multiple gadgets like batarangs and explosive charges brings in a very stylish element of challenge beyond simply staying alive. You also have to dodge unblockable attacks with the thumbsticks and physically duck under knife attacks. There's certainly plenty going on, with more regularly opening up as soon as you unlock new gadgets by progressing the story. That keeps the campaign's fights and the optional standalone challenges interesting and repeatable. The stealthy predator battles, on the other hand, work almost identically to the way they do in traditional Arkham games, in that you're staying hidden as you take down gun-toting enemies who can quickly kill you if they spot you.
Where are you hiding, Batman?
But they're a little bit more frustrating here because the controls lack the precision needed to consistently avoid detection. I eventually learned to do takedowns extremely carefully with emergency escape smoke bombs at the ready, to avoid taking a lead shower, but that felt like working around a problem rather than learning a new system. Even so, it's never anything less than joyful to drop down from a gargoyle perch, grab a thug, and leave him helplessly dangling like a piñata for his friends to find. We also get a handful of boss fights, mostly against the obvious opponents, and although these are a nice change of pace while they last, only one late game one is all that memorable, and none of them are especially interesting on a mechanical level.
I'm done holding back.
For a second there, I thought you were a rat.
Without the Riddler around to stash his question marks everywhere, the rat cultists have picked up puzzle duty in Blackgate, and their handiwork ranges from trivially easy to respectably tricky and rewarding to solve. Reaching smashable rat statues and radios spreading the king's propaganda is often a matter of turning left when the obvious path goes right. But frequently this involves unlocking doors, crawling through vents, climbing pipes, and more to get the right angle, or deciphering patterns to work out codes to door locks by switching in and out of detective mode by tapping your temple.
Setting up a crime scene perimeter.
Most of detective mode is pretty straightforward though. There's none of the more ambitious crime scene reconstruction stuff from Arkham Knight. Most of it, especially the crime scene investigation sequences, is basically just doling out plot information one piece at a time. Exploration is, of course, a big part of any Arkham game, and there are plenty of Easter eggs to find around Blackgate.
You've reached the Gotham University offices of Dr. Jonathan Crane.
References to Batman lore and chatter from other prisoners and scattered around the environment didn't appear quite as thick as they are in Rocksteady's games, which is honestly another off-the-chart standard to hold any game to, especially when the best material has already been thoroughly mined. But it's not in short supply. One thing that's a little too easy to find at this point though is bugs. I'm told there is a patch in the works to address at least some of this, but even after launch, this review was delayed by about a day because I wasn't able to complete the story due to a repeated crash while trying to disarm a bomb, due to the fact that I'd done things in an order that was slightly different from what was precisely intended. That was after multiple crashes before I reached that point, and I also had to reload saves multiple times because I fell through the world or got stuck on level geometry. I had plenty of audio stuttering, saw long load times when returning from the map screen, lost the ability to use my batarang during a boss fight that required it, and had a couple of puzzles made much more difficult than they should have been because key items didn't highlight in detective mode. So it wasn't as smooth a ride as I would have liked, but I did see the ending and I was pleased with it. Don't worry, I won't say much about how it turned out other than that, while I did see one big reveal coming a mile away, there was more to it that caught me off guard in a way that made me smile.
Oh, don't look at me that way, Martinez. If you were any more corrupt, you'd still be a cop.
I don't think it's much of a spoiler to say the Rat King does not turn out to be the Joker, and in fact, camouflage is admirably restrained in its use of Batman's nemesis. After that big eye-rolling reveal in Arkham Origins, and the enormous posthumous role he played in Arkham Knight, leaning on that crutch once again would have annoyed me to no end. I breathed a sigh of relief when other characters got some time in the spotlight. Batman Arkham Shadow does an admirable job of adapting almost everything I love about the Arkham series to work in a full-fledged VR game, and it's impressive looking for a game that's exclusive to the standalone MetaQuest 3 headset. There are a few hitches and bugs that mean some parts don't work quite as well as others, but its vigorous brawling, exploration, tricky puzzle solving, and stealth are all in full effect as you sneak and punch your way through Blackgate Prison in a twisting, undercover pursuit of a mysterious cult leader where just about everybody's a suspect. It's certainly smaller in scale than any game since Arkham Asylum, but it's far larger and more built out than you might expect after Batman Arkham VR, and a return to an enclosed prison setting makes it feel dense and intricate. For more, check out our reviews of A Quiet Place: The Road Ahead, or Kong: Survivor Instinct. And for everything else, stick with IGN.
Take a breather, Batman, you've earned it. Times like this, I even feel like we're on the same team.